Hello guys, and welcome to Force Rape Timeline Hangout number 77, the first one of 2023. The subject this time is embellishment, obsession, delusion. And it came about because I recently found this clip. Well, this is part of a longer, well, fairly long, well, a longer interview, put it that way, of Shawna Rivera. It was uploaded to YouTube on January 6th by a channel called Afghan Traveller. Let me just play you a bit.
I was friends with this girl, and she somehow or another she knew Jeffrey Epstein, and she came over to my house one day and she said, "Hey, I need you to come with me to this guy's house." And I'm not thinking she's gonna go to this guy's house to like do anything sexual with him. You know, I've got problems. I've got drug problems. I've got a fucked up family life, and you know, all kinds of screwed up things. I'm 12 years old. I don't know what sex is. I don't know how to have sex. I'm not doing it. I'm not thinking about that at all. So with that being said, you know, I went over to this guy's house with her, and she walked me up into a room where she left me alone with this guy. And as soon as she walked out of the room, he took his clothes off and demanded that I take mine off. And you know, from there, what happened, and that man was Jeffrey Epstein, and that house was a mansion in Palm Beach. And my life has not been the same since, I guess is really what you would call that. I mean,
you think that was a contributing factor to your drug use also?
I think that was absolutely a contributing factor to my drug use later in life. I mean, I was already kind of doing some things then, but yeah, absolutely, for sure, you know. So I was, so moving forward after having, you know, this is my initial meeting with the guy, so I'm now, I don't know how, like 5 years later, whatever, however many years it was, I was 19, and the FBI started trying to contact me, and they were, you know, kind of harassing my family, and like, I don't know, they just wanted to talk to me, I guess, and it was about Jeffrey Epstein. I guess he had been, somebody reported him, or whatever happened, you know. So they contacted me. Eventually I contacted them back, and then I told them everything that happened. You know, they asked me what happened, I told them, and then nothing happened. Jeffrey Epstein had been arrested, and he had gone into court where the state attorneys, for I don't know what reason, decided that he didn't need to be punished for any of the victims that he had raped after that first girl that I guess he was tried for. You know.
First of all, did you spot the deliberate mistake? Afghan trucker, not Afghan traveller. That, as I said, was Shawna Rivera, not to be confused with a restaurateur in California of the same name. Shawna had a hard life, no doubt about that. When she was a young girl, she saw her father. Her father was I suppose, a career criminal or some sort of lowlife. I mean that in the proper sense. He was living with another woman, not his wife, and he murdered her young son. And Shawna saw it, although later she retracted the allegation. If I can find this press report here. This is from that's the Epstein one. This is from, I'm using the Newsbank version here, Palm Beach Post, November 1st, 2003, page 1B. A prosecutor conceded Friday he did not know who killed 8-year-old Jose Torres. Joey, Jose Torres is quite a common name. There's at least one boxer named Jose Torres. The child's mother or her boyfriend. But Assistant State Attorney Richard Seymour said he plans to prove in next week's trial that Bradley Dial 38, binged on cocaine while repeatedly beating the boy during the 2 days before he was found dead of massive internal injuries. Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty for Dial, but agreed not to seek the death penalty for Huff. It says here that a bit about one of Dial's daughters, Shawna Rivera, who initially told investigators she saw her father beat Jay, but recanted, ran away from home 2 weeks ago, prosecutors said. Shawna had a hard life. She says, or appears to say in this video, that she was recruited by Jeffrey Epstein at the age of 12. In fact, it was 14. And she alludes to girls Epstein raped. Now, let's get this clear. Epstein has been called repeatedly a paedophile. He was not a paedophile. He engaged slightly younger than, well, in Florida, the age of consent is a whopping 21. I think it's 21 in Florida. But in England, it's 16. He was recruiting 14-year-old girls to give them sexualised massages, or maybe just massages at some time, but while he was naked. But this is obviously totally inappropriate for a man to do, any man. But it isn't rape, wasn't rape. And all sorts of rubbish has been spouted about Epstein. I believe that in Britain, certainly Ghislaine Maxwell would have been given at most a 5-year sentence for her so-called trafficking victims. Epstein, I doubt very much his figure would have gone much into double figures for the offences of which he was committed. He would have been convicted. I would say it's not as an apologia for this sort of thing, but if you compare this with the grooming gang scandal in England, which was absolutely well, there's been some false allegations there, and there's been some embellishment, no doubt about that, but it was on an industrial scale, literally on an industrial scale. And the authorities, by and large, turn a blind eye to it, because those involved are predominantly, as Jack Straw said, men of Pakistani heritage, not Muslims. I'll stress that for Mr. Robinson. And it's absolutely scandalous. What Epstein did was, I mean, the money the guy had, he could have hired midgets to pose as schoolgirls, or models to dress up as schoolgirls and massage him, but he preferred underage girls, and ultimately paid the price, whether or not he took his own life. Sorry about the yawning, but as usual, it's gone midnight. Well, it's gone midnight anyway. Shawna says that she refers to girls Epstein raped. No, there is no credible evidence that Epstein raped any girl. There have been allegations, of course, but these come years later. And two of his principal accused is the odious former Virginia Roberts and that South African woman. They've very little credibility. Well, Roberts has zero credibility because she submitted to trafficking girls for Epstein. So she should have been in the dock with him as a co-conspirator. Actually lied about Prince Andrew. Check out my videos on Prince Andrew, who's been really abominably treated. But you notice here Rivera has, as I say, she had a hard life. She says that she went back to Epstein again and again and again for years at $200 a time. And what did she do with that money? Well, she spent it on drugs. She's been interviewed here. She's homeless in Las Vegas. She's living in the tunnels under Las Vegas. Homeless people. It's absolutely outrageous. She married a guy, or she said she was married to a guy, and he emptied her bank account and went and blown it all over the tables. blew it on the tables at Las Vegas. She has 2 kids, 2 daughters she hasn't seen. She's got tattoos on her arms. She's a very sad case, but how much of that is due to Jeffrey Epstein? She got some. She obviously got some money out of there was these legal actions brought against him. So I don't know how much she got, but it must have been. Oh, excuse me. Must have been quite substantial. Again, excuse the creaking table. And everything is down to the way she's abused. Now, so one more time, she had a hard life. Her father was a complete low life, and she was doing drugs apparently from the age of 12, which is scandalous. She should have been in care or something. And this is Florida, the Sunshine State. The Golden State, no, is that California? The Sunshine State, one of the Sunshine States anyway. And she's made nothing of her life, and of course it's all the fault of Jeffrey Epstein. Although in the video she also says that she worked as a stripper. After she had her first baby, she went back to the club working, not as a stripper but doing other things. She said she was paid by men to do things, which prostitution, but also some guys treated her well. One guy took her to Wisconsin, probably an older man who wanted to pass off as his girlfriend or whatever. So not all men treated her like dirt, and really Epstein didn't treat her like dirt. Epstein paid her well. She could have used that money to get out of the rut she was in. And this is something we see from real and imagined victims of child sexual abuse. Everything is down to the way they were treated by a man or some men. Nothing's ever their fault. Their lives are totally screwed up, and they focus on this one. It may only have a single incident. There's been cases of this. A woman's had her breast groped when she was 14 or maybe older, and she focuses on it, and it destroys her life. As though people didn't suffer greater tragedies. I mean, women have miscarriages. Like men, they have diseases, accidents, and they have bereavements. Sometimes losing your job can be, or being burgled can be traumatic. But they focus on this one point, then they become obsessive. Now I want to talk about the broader context of obsession, because this is something that can destroy people, and does, not just in the sexual realm. I'll give 2 examples, both from the UK. One is absolutely ridiculous. The other resulted in an obscene tragedy. I'll call it that. Let's deal with the ridiculous one first. Right, in 1995 there was a young lady named Paula Douglas, a black woman, black girl, whatever. She was studying at the College of Law in Chester, and the tutor, instructor or whatever, used that long verboten phrase "nigger in the woodpile" in the class, meaning well, I don't know the original, haven't bothered looking up the origin of it, but it's something that shouldn't be there, something annoying, whatever. Anyway, she failed her exams and she blamed her failure on the trauma caused by this unfortunate incident, or that unfortunate incident, in the words of a judge. So she sued the College of Law, the Law Society and firms of solicitors for 41 times, unsuccessfully, for all alleging racial discrimination. She was described by the judge as obsessive and someone who will not take no for an answer. And in 2006 she was declared a vexatious litigant. A vexatious litigant is these are largely people who litigate on their own. The litigants in person in the UK or in the United States, it's called something different. It's called, I forget what it's called, but we'll defend it. It isn't called in person. If you're acting in person, be it in a criminal case or a civil case, you're given more latitude by the judge. Anyway, to stop people bringing action after action after action after action after action frivolously, there's something called a Section 42 order, which the Attorney General can go to the court and say this person has been brought so many actions. You won't be made a vexatious litigant just because you lose a lot of liable whatever actions. You won't, if you sue a dozen times and you lose a dozen times, you won't be made a vexatious litigant. It has to be something which is, at least people who don't understand the law, basically. And a lot of them see the law, the way the law acts, as a conspiracy against them, which this is the way bureaucracy works. It looks like a conspiracy. Anyway, this is the Attorney General will go to court and say this person is vexatious litigant. Apply. Usually these applications are uncontested, and the court will routinely declare that person a vexatious litigant. Doesn't mean he or she can't bring a legal action, a civil action. It means that to do so, that person needs to get leave from the court first. That's a Section 42 order. I think it's a Section 42 order still. I'd actually set up in 2002 a small website called Vexatious Litigant, which is now it's part of my main website, Infotext Manuscripts. There's also something called a grape and loam order in English law in England, presumably England, Wales. Grape, capital G R E P E, loam, capital L O A M. That is more restrictive than a Section 42 order. It's basically to stop somebody bringing an action in the same case. Great v. loam, civil restraint order it's called. But this is where obsession can lead you. I mean, this tutor or lecturer or whatever use this one. I mean, seriously, you think slavery hadn't been abolished? The way some of these idiots go on. But this is where obsession can lead you. And the next case I'm going to mention is not laughable, but both tragic and sinister. Once upon a time, there were two young women who worked together, side by side, in a store, a Victoria's Secret store in East London. Mary and Naomi. Naomi was quite good looking, you know. Mary wasn't that bad looking either. But for some reason, Mary took a dislike to Naomi. It may have been something Naomi said to her, a cruel remark that passed for nothing normally between friends, banter. But this became obsessive with Mary. So what did she do? She bought some sulfuric acid. She disguised herself as an Orthodox Muslim woman, full garb, you know, burqa, niqab, whatever, totally clad to make her difficult to recognise. And she followed Naomi home and threw acid in her face. And this was the result. There are various reasons have been given for this attack, but at the end of the day it comes down to obsession. Mary Konye was given 12 years for assault, which for a woman means, 6. Naomi has faced, well, she's had, her looks have been recovered pretty well, but scars will remain, and of course the psychological scars are something like, I mean, absolutely horrific. 12 years was, I mean, 20 years would have been more reasonable, but that would have probably been struck down as excessive by the Court of Appeal. This is where obsession can lead you, in all walks of life, and over a triviality, you know, nothing. Now let's get back to sex and related issues. I'm now going to play a short clip of the odious Gloria Allred and a delusional woman named Linda Ridgway Whitedeer. Allred, the odious in the extreme. It was her obsession that led to the conviction of Bill Cosby, almost certainly unjustly, for the sexual assault on Andrea Constand. Certainly there was a massive case there for reasonable doubt. I've made a long video on this called the Prior Bad Acts of Gloria Allred. This woman should be in prison, not just for what she did for Cosby, but certainly for the Judge Roy Moore case. Look that up as well. She was using to convict Cosby. She produced a gaggle of women who were liars, whores, and in this case just out of a fucking tree. One of many. There was well, check out the video, you'll see what I mean, but ask yourself how the assaulted media hacks didn't laugh, how nobody laughed while this woman was relating her fantasy tale of just ludicrous.
As I looked up, his penis was out of his pants, and he shoved it into my mouth. His attack was fast, with surgical precision, and surprise was on his side.
I couldn't breathe. I was in shock. I thought of the boy possibly outside the door. When Cosby was done, there was a horrible mess of semen all over my face, my clothes, and in my hair. He took out a Kleenex to try and wipe off my face. I was bordering between vomiting and passing out. He was mumbling that I had been blessed with his semen, as if it was holy water. He gloated over my humiliation. He planned it. Even to this day, I am still ashamed that I went into shock. I wish I'd tried to kick him, but I felt like my heart had stopped. I couldn't catch my breath.
There are many cases of delusional women on the False Rape timeline. I've got a couple more to add at some point. In fact, as some of you may know, I started the timeline primarily because of, not quite a personal experience, but of a case of delusion and the people who fostered this individual's delusions. I'll say no more than that, but some of you will know of whom I speak. This is really dangerous stuff, and it's particularly dangerous when rape crisis centres and so-called therapists brainwash women into believing they've been raped or sexually abused when they were young. This goes back to the first century. On the timeline for this is Sigmund Freud's paper on the etiology of hysteria. Anyway, I'll leave it there. One thing I will say about delusional people is that there's no, a lot of times there's no arguing with them. They're a lot of left-wing politics is like that. They will see only what they want to see, and this is very similar, and of course it too could have tragic results. Anyway, so I'll leave it there. I hope to make another video, if not later this month then early next month.